The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.
With so many people living longer, the fear of outliving your money becomes a reality for many of us. Will I be a financial burden? Will I outlive my money? How will I be remembered? My name is Neil Himmelstein, president of Main Street Planning Group. Please contact me by visiting mainstreetplanninggroup.com. That's mainstreetplanninggroup.com, or call 631-647-4694. I will introduce you to strategies that will guarantee you will not outlive your money, that can guarantee you will not be a burden on your loved ones. Through a collaborative approach, we will uncover solutions that offer tax-efficient strategies, lifetime income, and legacy planning, choice, organization, direction, and education. That is the code we stand behind. Contact mainstreetplanninggroup.com. That's mainstreetplanninggroup.com, or call 631-647-4694. And listen to me every Friday at 3 p.m. as I host the Main Street Code for Financial Success, right here on 103.9 LI News Radio. Welcome to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. I'm your host, Neil Himmelstein. I'm here every Friday at 3. When we talk about our code, we talk about choice, organization, direction, and education. And we help hundreds of advisors, accountants, attorneys, insurance professionals across the United States in the area of insurance planning and financial planning. We specialize in life insurance, disability, long-term care, annuities, and life settlements. And because we're independent, unique, and a wholesaler, we offer 30 different insurance companies, but it's all dependent upon what your needs are, as of putting the right product with the right person, not putting the person in a product like some of these career companies will try and do. So we give you totally financial, independent advice. And once again, we are working with lots of different attorneys and accountants when they have problems with the insurance planning. One of the issues that came up yesterday or the day before was there's a lot of divorce planning going on. It seems like there's a lot of divorces even among seniors now, that it's just on the rise. And there's a lot of things to prepare for if you're about to get divorced or if you're divorced, and a lot of considerations. Number one consideration, if you're planning on divorce or you're in the process, is you have to know where all your assets are. You have to know what's joint asset, how things are titled, where retirement assets are. Does your spouse have a retirement? Do you have a retirement? Because one of the things that gets divided up in divorce via what they call a quadro agreement, and I'm not a divorce attorney, I am who I am, but in any event, a quadro agreement is a qualified agreement with IRAs and whatnot where they get split. And sometimes what we're finding is there's a lot of complications, especially if someone's receiving income from the retirement account. So these are some of the things you have to look at. One of the other key things that you have to look at is the beneficiary designations have to be looked at on all your policies and all your retirement accounts. Immediately, you have to make sure that things are going where they are supposed to go. Quite often, people don't change the beneficiary and they get remarried or something else happens, and it creates a major problem where your assets may not go to who you want it to go, and vice versa. So that is another major consideration. So you do want to be thoroughly organized. Picking a financial planner. So quite often, one spouse has a planner that planned for both of you. Now that you're separating, you may want to get your own person. You can call me, and I can help you with your plans, because you may not be the one that's handled the finances. You may be the one that's handled the finances, but once they split up, then you're on your own to really figure out how to move forward. Whether you're coming into money, whether you're not, whether you're losing a lot of money, it's a real time to sit down, reorganize yourself, because now instead of planning for two, considering it's a couple, you're now planning for one, and it's quite different. one of the things that comes up often is one of the spouses may have to take out insurance on themselves, life insurance, to protect the income that they may owe the other spouse, or for children that they share in common. So that's a big deal that attorneys require, that maybe the spouse has, depending on which one's making money, if they're both high income earners, they have to take insurance on each other as part of the plan. So that's one of the areas we get involved in. One of the other areas we get involved in, and we're always involved in, long-term care planning. And sometimes when you don't have the spouse to depend on, and you haven't thought about that, it's a good time to analyze how are you going to take care of yourself down the road if no one else is there for you. So there's a lot of things you want to do. You want to check the other person's credit. Very important, especially if, not even if, always, when you're dividing a house or whatever else, is there any liens? Is there any debt that you don't know about that the other spouse has encountered? I've seen this happen quite a few times where there's a lien on the house or something. Having the house as the marital asset that you get in divorce may or may not be the best asset to have. It may be very burdened. It may need a lot of repairs. It may be a lot of costs. It may be that, you've come to this agreement where I've seen this, where one spouse, you take the house and just leave me alone with everything else. And they sign a piece of paper and they find out the house is encumbered. There's a problem because they went to, one of the spouses lawyered up and the other one didn't. They trusted the other one. And then there's even more problems down the road. So there could be a lot of problems. There is a lot of planning that needs to be done. And if you're recently divorced or about to be divorced, you really want to sit down with somebody, not just an attorney. Now, attorneys, God bless them, many attorneys in divorces, they will string these divorces out because they're getting fees all along. And I've seen couples both sacrifice a lot of their personal wealth because the attorneys are just pushing to get more of a share. And it even creates greater friction. When you have children, joint children, that's also, of course, a major consideration. Who's going to take care of the children? If they're younger, you have college considerations. There's a whole bunch of planning that you need to do if you're getting a divorce, or if you're recently divorced, that you have to do. What further complicates things is you getting divorced, maybe at a younger age, having children, then remarrying. And then you have a blended family situation where the one spouse may have previous children, you have children. It's a major estate planning. We talked about it last week, about having that blended family. You have very unique planning they have to do. Are you responsible for your spouse's children from the previous marriage? And if something happens to you, how is your estate divvied up? And that could create a lot of hard feelings. And again, a lot of planning is involved. Sometimes you might need a life insurance policy to equalize out your estate so that, your children from the first marriage get their share, as well as your biological children. And maybe you have biological children with the second marriage. And, how you treat them down the road is very important. Nobody wants to leave a legacy that's fraught with children feeling bent out of shape. I haven't met anybody yet that really they want their kids to get along. And when it comes to money, and when it comes to legacy, as much as kids get along today, even adults, I've seen them tear each other apart once you're gone because they feel cheated or left out. So, again, a lot of planning. It's not just attorneys. You need a financial planner. You need to look at your insurances very carefully. You need a good CPA, but you really need a team of financial professionals. You're listening to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. I'm your host, Neil Himmelstein. Best way to get a hold of me is 631-647-4694. I encourage your questions, your comments. Again, 631-647-4694. You can also visit me on themainstreetcode.com or catch me on Apple or Spotify. The Main Street Code for Financial Success. And we'll be right back after a quick break. Welcome back to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. I'm your host, Neil Himmelstein. I'm here every Friday at 3 o'clock. And if you listened to me before the break, we were talking about preparing for divorce. Now I want to talk about, what if you have a business divorce? What happens then? Well, it could get very, very complicated. I've been through one of those, and I got to tell you, it was not pleasant. I had to reorganize, start a new company. It was quite an adventure. So one of the things that we plan prior to divorce, prior to a business divorce, is we create a prenuptial agreement. Whether when we get married, hopefully you have a prenup. Yes, we go in full throttle. We love each other. We don't need that, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, things go sour. This is mine. This is yours. Big fights. Businesses, you really need to have a prenup agreement. You need to have a will. As a matter of fact, I was doing business with somebody one time, and he said this, and I repeated to him. He says he already, in his head, didn't want to do business. Not that he didn't want to do business with me, but in his head, he thought he was big enough that he didn't have to do business through me. He says, when I get to a certain level, let's negotiate our divorce even before we date. I was like, whoa, what a concept. But when you think about it, you kind of have to do that. You have to figure out, we talk about, does your business have a will? Do you have a plan? Because one of the things you have to plan for is, what if this doesn't work out? What if we break up? Who takes what? Where goes where? What if your business partner at some point becomes disabled? Do you still have to pay him? He's your partner. What if he decides, I'm going on vacation for a month and leaves you with all the work? And how's that business going to run? These are things you're not probably thinking about going into business or going into partnership with somebody, but this is reality. One person gets sick, one person dies, one person decides they don't want to work anymore. How are you going to handle all that? So one of the prenup things we do is we ask all businesses, does your business have a will? Now, what does that mean? Very simply, and I've talked about this in past programs, I ask people that and they go, what do you mean? Well, very simple. The de facto, let's just say you have a partnership with two people. The de facto new partner, if your partner dies, is your partner's spouse. Or if he doesn't have a spouse or she doesn't have a spouse, could be her next of kin. Now, do they know anything about your business? You may like these people, but can they run a business with you? I would say many times not. So, but that's the de facto, because that's part of their estate. People don't realize, because we're business partners, their part of the business, their share, whether it's 50%, 20%, 10%, goes to their beneficiaries. So, considering that, we create a will, and that will states what happens if business partner B passes away. Well, what we do is we buy an insurance policy for that business partner so that his spouse will get that share of the business, or his beneficiaries, with an insurance policy, basically buying them out of their share of the business if they pass. So if you have two partners, you do a partnership agreement. Each partner buys insurance on the other. There's different ways of doing it. The old-fashioned way is what they call cross-purchase agreement. Now, it's very commonly done, and then it gets complicated because the company gets bigger, and you put together an agreement that the company's paying for, and the company owns it. You can't do that anymore. So if that's the way you set it up, the company can't own this. Because when the company owns it, the IRS determined 2 years ago that that's now an asset of the corporation. So if your business is worth $1 million and you take out a $500,000 policy each, and that one person dies and you own it and the business gets the beneficiary of it, they consider that death benefit to be now worth $1.5 million. $1 million plus the death benefit of $500,000. Now the beneficiary or the spouse says, aha, the business is worth $1.5 million. Where's my $750,000? Not $500. Legally, that's what they're entitled to. So now you have a big problem. Where am I going to come up with the extra $250,000? So anybody that's set up those in the past really has to relook at it, as the business really can't own it anymore, because this has created a major problem. And if it's large enough, will create an estate tax problem as well for the individual inheriting their share of the business, as well as other things. So the whole structure has to be looked at very carefully and reviewed, even when you set up your prenup or your business will. One of the most overlooked things in a business will, and it's all talked about if you have an attorney or a CPA that draws this agreement up between the two of you. This is always overlooked. I mean, it's talked about but never funded. And that's if one of the partners becomes disabled. Who's going to run the business? And does that partner still need to make a living and get paid? How are they going to get paid if they become disabled? Now, they write it in line, blah, blah, blah. You need to buy a specific disability policy, disability insurance, something we do, that will make sure that if that partner gets disabled, they can still continually get an income, and or you can set it up as a key man situation where the business will benefit so they can hire somebody or, have somebody else have that income replaced so that they can run their business. These are things you have to think about. And the problem with most business people that I know, and I was talking to a gentleman this morning who's a contractor. He's got 10 employees, a young man, and he just did a whole bunch of work on my house. And I said, listen, you don't understand. He told me, I hear this is a scam and this, I don't know. I know I've got my one insurance. He's so busy making money and trying to run his business with all the problems and daily problems that he never sat, and this is very common, to say, how do I plan this out in case of this contingency, in case of this contingency, in case of that contingency? Because maybe he didn't spend the time himself, or nobody broached the subject with him. What is your plan? How do you plan if this happens or that happens? And that's what we call a business will. Part of it, a lot of people will call it a buy-sell agreement, where I'm going to buy you out. But it's more than that. It's more of a business will where it incorporates not just buying you out if you die or if you become disabled. You could have a business divorce where one partner decides, hey, I'm going to take this business and run with it. And you're bye-bye. And then, boy, you got a divorce coming. And that business divorce can be very ugly, very expensive, like a regular divorce. And emotionally charged, when you have employees involved, who's loyal to who and what, it could be a big mess. So my message today is really, you need to plan, whether you're married, whether you have a business, to think about these things, and we can help you do that. So you've been listening to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. My name's Neil Himmelstein. Best way to get a hold of me is 631-647-4694. That's 631-647-4694, or visit me at themainstreetcode.com. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.